They say time heals all wounds, but for me, time only stretches the emptiness. That day, I lost the person I loved most, without warning, without a chance to hold their hand one last time. All sounds went silent, and the world turned a cold shade of gray. I thought I had died in that moment, until the journey to find myself began. They say time heals all wounds, but for me, time only stretches the emptiness. That day, everything happened too fast, too cruel. A short phone call on a sunlit afternoon tore my world apart. He's gone. I stood frozen in the middle of the street. The honking cars, the chatter of people passing by, all of it vanished. Only my heartbeat thudded wildly, then slipped into a cold, endless void. I didn't make it in time. Didn't get to say I love you one more time. Didn't get to see the smile still etched in my memory. In the days that followed, I lived like a shadow. The chair beside the dining table sat empty, the shirt he left behind still hanging where it always did. The room reeked of memories, every breath choking me. I tried to slow everything down, as if standing still could stop time and maybe bring him back. But time is ruthless. It kept moving, leaving me behind. Some nights, I'd scroll through my phone, reading his last message over and over. Simple words, yet now they cut like knives. I asked myself countless times, why him? Why us? No one answered. Only a heavy silence swallowed me whole. I used to think I was strong. But this loss shattered me from within, leaving a crack that could never be mended. And so, my journey began, not to forget, but to find a way to keep living with the emptiness. After he left, I embarked on a journey, not even sure what I was searching for. Maybe an escape. Maybe a miracle to bring him back. Or maybe, just a reason to keep breathing. I started moving more. Late night rides, unfamiliar streets, distant hotels. I walked as if, by going far enough, the pain would grow tired and leave me behind. But wherever I went, when night fell, memories of him crept in like a shadow that wouldn't let go. During the day, I buried myself in work, taking on every project, every task, just to avoid being alone. I feared the silence. In the silence, his laughter echoed so vividly I wanted to scream to drown it out. Along the way, I met strangers each carrying their own story. Some had lost a father, some a child, some themselves to long, painful illnesses. Listening to them, I realized grief belonged to no one alone. Yet strangely, it didn't bring relief. It only reminded me that I was part of a vast ocean of loss. Once, in a small cafe, an old woman stared at me for a long moment and said, "You're looking for something that can't be found anymore." I forced a smile, unsure how to respond. But her words clung to me the entire way home. I kept moving. Not out of hope of finding him, but because I didn't know where to stop. And perhaps, in that very moment, I was drawing closer to a turning point that would change everything. That day, rain fell unexpectedly while I was wandering through a small coastal town. I took shelter under the awning of an old bookstore. The scent of damp paper, the sound of raindrops, and a faint melody playing a song he once sang to me on an autumn evening filled the air. I stood still, heart racing. Memories of him washed over me, no longer sharp and piercing, but soft, gentle. I realized I no longer felt pain when I thought of him. Instead, there was a warm kind of longing, as if he were right there, just in a different form. The shop owner, a silver-haired old man, invited me inside. We talked. When he learned I had recently lost the one I loved, he simply smiled and handed me an old book with a handwritten note on the first page: "People never truly leave. They just step into another room." I read that line over and over. For the first time in months, I felt a deep, full breath. I understood that loss does not erase love. It simply transforms it into something invisible, quietly remaining, supporting us every day. On the way back to my lodging, I looked up at the sky, now clearing after the rain. The sunset spilled golden across the sea. I suddenly realized how many beautiful moments I had missed, clinging so tightly to the past. Life is fragile. We never know who will stay, who will leave, or for how long. In that moment, I no longer wanted to run. I wanted to live. Not to forget him, but to love him in a new way by living fully every remaining day I have. After that day in the coastal town, I decided to return to the place most tied to him, the small house on the tree-lined street. For months, I had avoided stepping inside, afraid that every corner would reopen old wounds. That afternoon, as I opened the door, a familiar scent greeted me, the smell of coffee he used to brew every morning. Sunlight streamed through the window, falling across the wooden chair where he often sat reading. I stood still for a long time, then stepped inside, as if returning to a meeting that had been delayed too long. I opened the desk drawer and found the movie ticket we never used, a half-developed photo in the camera, and a scrap of paper he had jotted down, "Buy flowers for you." Tears fell, but this time, they were not the screams of despair. They were tears of relief, because I knew I was holding on to the most beautiful parts of him. I sat in the chair, brewed a cup of coffee the way he always did, and whispered words I never got to say. No reply was needed, for I felt him there, in every breath, in every memory. That evening, I walked to the river near the house, where he once held my hand and promised we would grow old together. The water still flowed, the light still glowed the same golden hue, but my heart had changed. I no longer tried to hold him back from leaving, instead, I learned to let that love flow with time. The past was no longer a wound that bled, it had become a gentle part of my heart. I had made peace with it. And I knew I was ready to step into a new life, carrying him with me, but no longer bound by pain. Since that day, I began living at a slower, yet deeper, pace. I no longer ran from memories, nor allowed sadness to consume the days I still had. Each morning, I opened the window and let the sunlight in, as if it were a greeting from him. I spent more time with family, with the friends who quietly stayed by my side during the months I felt lost. I learned to listen to their stories, realizing that everyone carries a wound, some deep, some shallow. Some days, I brought a bouquet to the cemetery, not to cry, but to tell him about the little things I had done, learning to cook his favorite dish, finishing a project we left incomplete, helping a friend through a hard time. I believed, somewhere, he would be smiling. I also began to write small stories, scattered notes about my journey. A few people read them and shared their own losses. I realized that my story, our story, could be a small light for someone drowning in darkness. Sometimes, I still dream of him. In those dreams, we don't speak much. We simply hold hands and smile. I wake up with a sense of peace, as if he had told me to keep going, and I am doing just that. Life doesn't return what has been lost. But it gives me the chance to turn loss into something beautiful. Now, I walk with steadier steps, carrying him not as a ghost of the past, but as a small flame, always burning in my heart. Perhaps, loving someone isn't just about walking with them to the end of the road, it's also having the courage to keep going when they can no longer walk with you. I lost him, the greatest loss of my life, but through it, I learned to live a deeper, fuller life. If tomorrow I were to leave, I want people to remember me not for what I lost, but for the love I gave and kept until the very end. To anyone hurting from loss, I want to say this: you don't have to forget. Let the love remain, let it guide you forward. And one day, when you look back, you'll see that you are no longer standing in the shadows, you are walking beneath a sky full of light.